This is the ASUS ROG, no it's not, sorry, this is the Zenfone 11 Ultra, and you might have seen this phone somewhere before. Okay, I joke. This is actually the Zenfone 11 Ultra, and it's taken some inspiration from the ROG 8 that we saw a couple of months ago. And when I say inspiration, I kind of mean like it's copied all of the inside specs like for like. And more importantly, it's built on last year's Zenfone 10 really well and added all of those great specs for the ROG Phone 8 into something which is a little bit more mainstream. Some things on the Zenfone 11 have changed dramatically this year, and one of those things is that display. So last year's Zenfone 10 had a fairly decent sized display, but this year we've jumped to a 6.7-inch display. The battery has jumped as well to 5,500 mAh with 65-watt hypercharge, and ASUS has said that with that 5,500 mAh battery in their day of use test, this can last up to 26 hours, but I'm questioning that because we'll see how it actually fares day to day. In terms of what's powering it, that chip has jumped to the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, and it also tops out its 16 gigs of RAM, and you get some pretty decent colours. You get 4 of them: Desert Sand, Misty Grey and Eternal Black, and you also get a Skyline Blue. And ASUS haven't just forgotten what made that Zenfone 10 great, because they've put this into the Zenfone 11 as well. You still get that 3.5mm headphone jack when most people have ditched it at this point. There's still wireless charging, which is really nice to see, and it's still IP68 water resistant, and the display can go up to 144Hz on some games, but mostly it just stays at that 120Hz, and I've got to say, it feels really snappy and smooth, and it's LTPO, so it's kind of like a win all round. But ASUS have removed some stuff that also made the Zenfone 10 great, and there's some stuff that you just don't get on the 11. That multi-action side button is now not a fingerprint reader, as that's under the display, and I've got to say, it's pretty accurate and really quick, so I'm a big fan of it. But swiping up and down on that button also doesn't bring the notification slider down like it did on last year's Zenfone 10, but you can set a double tap and a long press as different actions, which still can be pretty useful. The Zenfone 11 does have some pretty big changes though this year, and one of them being AI. Now, every phone that's coming out in the last 12 months or so is putting AI at the front of its devices, and Zenfone is no different. A lot of the AI on the Zenfone is actually done just on the device itself, so a lot of it just doesn't go to the cloud. Like, for example, you've got AI wallpapers, which we've seen before, but on the Zenfone, you have to download like a 3-4 gigabyte piece of AI software kit, and you get the options of nature, textures, abstract, cityscape, all the stuff that you've seen before. Zenfone have done really well here. We also have AI live call translation, which again happens in real time on the device. This can only be used using that ASUS dialer at the moment, and it sends a prompt to whoever's calling telling them that this live translation is going to happen, and it's your choice. You can either have it live translate your voice, or you can type something into the phone and it will just translate it into an automated voice on the other end. There's a handful of languages on its launch, so English, Japanese, Spanish, Chinese, there's quite a few. There's a slight delay when you use that AI live call translation, but other than that, it actually works pretty well, and the other person doesn't have to have an ASUS phone. They can be calling from the old school landline or literally anything else, and this will still work. AI noise cancellation is another feature that you have, which reduces sounds on both incoming and outgoing calls, and this doesn't just work in that ASUS dialer, it works on things like WhatsApp or any other data calling apps. In the image gallery as well on ASUS, it has a new feature called semantic search, where essentially it will scan every single one of your photos, which takes like 5-10 minutes, and then you can search really specific. So you can search the date of when a photo was taken or the location, so it saves all that metadata in its search engine, and you can find any photo that you want. And again, this works offline on device. There's also an AI transcript feature as well inside the audio recorder that is built in the stock version of that on the Zenfone 11, and again, this can work offline. It can transcribe anything that's recorded into that recorder app, and you know what? It works okay. And the only AI feature that needs to use the cloud so far is that summary feature based in the recorder app. But actually, anything else all happens on device. ASUS have done a really good job of putting AI into the Zenfone 11, but there's one other place that ASUS have done a big upgrade this year, and that is on the cameras. There's a 15 megapixel main camera, which is fairly similar to last year's Zenfone 10, and it still has that 6-axis hybrid gimbal, which means that when grabbing photos with that main lens or taking video, it has some seriously impressive stabilization. But new on this year's Zenfone 11 is that 32 megapixel telephoto lens, which has optical image stabilization, and there's a 13 megapixel ultra wide. First of all, taking photos on any three of those lenses is really not bad. So the highlights and lowlights, the white balance, the exposure, all looks pretty good, but the photos do look a little bit too saturated. And I'm somebody who doesn't mind a little bit of saturation in their photos, but Zenfone just add a little bit too much, even for my liking. With the telephoto camera, you can go up to 30 times zoom, but honestly, there isn't much point, as it's just not a usable photo. Even with the addition of hyper clarity, it just isn't worth it. Even going up to 10 times zoom, there's still some pretty usable details in that photo, but I would say if you can, stick to the 3 times zoom, because I would say that is your best shot. Video though on the Zenfone 11 is a bit more of a standout, and I'm actually surprised. That 6-axis hybrid gimbal means it has some seriously nice stabilization, and it's up there with some of the best I've seen in a while. Even this clip, I'm just walking, not trying to keep this phone massively still, and it looks like I've attached a gimbal to it. And the stabilization is just so good, and I just wasn't expecting to see that or get that good of stabilization from the Zenfone 11. Away from that stabilization being really good, the video recording and lens choice is a little bit of a confusing mess though. If you want to record in 4K 60, then you can only use that main lens. But if you record in 4K 30, then you can use the ultra wide lens. But you can't use the telephoto lens recording 4K at all. The only way to get access to all three of those lenses when you're recording video is to drop down to full HD resolution, which I think is a bit of a weird choice from ASUS with the Zenfone. And even then, when you switch between those lenses in video, it's such a dramatic jump, like it's not smooth at all. So in terms of being able to use all three of those lenses for video, it is a little bit all over the place. And maybe this can change with a software update from ASUS, but at the moment, it's not great. If you're wondering though how much you need to pay to get your hands on the Zenfone 11, well, in Europe, you're gonna have to pay €999, where in the UK, you have to pay £869, and that gets you 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. But if you want to bump it up just a little bit more to get 512 gigs of storage and 16 gigs of RAM, that's going to set you back €1,099 or £949. And if you want to pre-order it, you can do. The pre-orders start like today, and you can get a little bit of a discount if you pre-order it early. And overall, I actually really like the Zenfone 11. It's as close to stock Android that you can get. Like, you get the option. Do you want to use ASUS's software, which is close to stock Android, or basically just use stock Android? It's got some really decent cameras which take really nice photos, and the AI additions are actually really well implemented. My only issue with the Zenfone 11 is if you're going to pick this up, then you might only get 2 years of OS support software updates. I think it's really disappointing because Samsung and Google are out here giving you off 7 years of support, and you want to know that if you spend €999 on this, then you can have it supported for maybe 4 years, or even 3 years. But other than that, I didn't expect to like this Zenfone 11. But I think ASUS have done a really good job here. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you do that, then I will see you later.